Morning. So we're back in Coolant. It's 7 o'clock. Didn't sleep worth the hell last night. So what better thing to do than come wrench on the Grizzly? We're doing brakes because my brakes are absolutely ratched. They have been for multiple rides last year, but we were just too lazy. Oh, that was my funny bone on the edge of that toolbox. Self-cammering problems. Ooh. So, like I was saying, we're at the shop, we're going to do brakes. We're also going to do some fabrication. We're going to build a second bracket so that the whips stop. You'll see. But anyway, hoist. Yeah, see, when we're in the Mainville garage, I got to work on the floor, and it's dirty. No, in the air. That's what we want. So we're going to get the wheels and tires off of this thing, and I'll show you just how bad things are, and then what we're going to do. So big thanks to Trevor and Kyle at Dirty Life, because he was just down there in Ontario. He picked up parts for me. Unfortunately, couldn't fly them back, but he shipped them back, and the shipping was faster than Kyle on an airplane. And I'll find a way to show you the note Kyle left me in this box. It's very comical, but I need to blur some things. But it's here. I just might be able to put my finger over it. You guys can fill in the blank. I had a good laugh. And then yesterday was my birthday, July 1st. I don't know when this video is coming out, but yesterday, today. And they gave me my own brake pads for my birthday, so it was all good, all in good fun. So let's get started. We'll get this torn apart and show you what we're working with. I don't know how well you guys can see that. That's metal on metal, and you can see that the rotor. It's taking a hard life, and it doesn't change in any of the four corners. It's yeah, it's not good. It's not good. So we're gonna get those out of there. I got some tips for you Yamaha guys on these brakes so that you don't get absolutely frustrated or things seize to the point where you just want to lose your mind, because then you'll end up buying calipers if you take things a little too far. So we'll get these apart and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I got this bit apart. Now here's where the trick comes in for the Yamaha guys. There's going to be this little plug, focus, and then there's going to be this pin behind it, and it's threaded. And this is what your brake pads slide on here. Now, these like to strip out and seize inside. So that goes through this hole, through here in your brake pads, which are now, here's an old one. Ooh, it goes through this hole right here, so your brake pads can't leave the chat. But what happens is, you play in the mud, this little opening gets just packed with mud and dirt and corrosion and whatnot, and that plug is supposed to stop it. It doesn't. But the trick I've found over many years of Yamaha brakes is, yes, put the plug back in, but this pin, it's an Allen key. They strip out. Here's the tip. Number one, use a Torx. They bite way tighter, okay? And then, second of all, this pin, don't tighten it. Run it in and just barely finger, ooh, just a, ooh. And then this plug, where did I put it now? That plug, you put a flat blade socket on an impact, one dugga, just a, that's all you need. Because there's no load on that little plug. It's only sealing the big chunks from entering said hole. So that's one of my biggest tips is, it sounds wrong, but don't tighten any of your brake stuff to all heavens, because future you is going to hate you. So you guys know Suspect is not treated nicely, and she spun out no problem. So just a little tip, keep in mind, Brake parts that hold the caliper to the spindle, yes, tight. Brake parts that hold the little bits together, barely snug. That's my tip for the day for you guys. So now that you've gotten it apart, you'll pull your brake slide off. These pins here are what allow your brake pads to slide in and out, and that this caliper will float, so that you don't wear brake pads unevenly in to out. So you're going to want to compress this piston one at a time. There's a big key to this, one at a time. Where? There, right there. C-clamp, vice grips. I find the C-clamps easier, you can compress it nice and slow. But what you're going to want to do is one at a time is compress this side, put this side all back together, pump up your brakes. The reason for that is there's fluid inside of here, and you're going to push it all up the brake line, and it's got to go into this little reservoir. Now that only holds so much fluid. So if you push that one all the way in, and that one all the way in, as you know you can't compress a liquid, it's going to force all that fluid out here, and it's going to go down your handlebars, all over your paint and your racks. And brake fluid is almost like paint thinner. It'll take the coating and the painting off of just about anything. So what I do is I'll take one side apart, lube it up, the pins, clean all the little rubber boots out, and then I'll pump the brakes until they're tight again to fill this back up with fluid to make room for the fluid on the other side to get pushed up. So just a tip, because it really sucks to clean brake fluid, especially off this. I don't know if we've ever said in a video, but my machine is Linexed, so it takes the abuse and continues to look good. But as unpenetrable as Linex is, brake fluid, no match. Guys, I made a fatal mistake halfway into the front corner of this project. I left the coffee in the truck. It was a close one, real close one. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, so I got the brakes pumped up. I got this side taken apart. You don't need to see that again. But what I wanted to show you is the importance of lubing those little pins so that your calipers slide. So see, this is the first side I did. See, they're both shot, but they're both equally worn out. This is what happens when those pins seize. See, that's the inner pad, nothing left, cooked. See, that's the outer pad. See, there's still material on there. So what happened is this doesn't move anymore, and every time it applies, the caliper comes out, can't go back. So it holds pressure on that inner pad all the time. So you're going to burn that inner pad before the outer pad. So if you see uneven brake wear inside to outside, 90% of the time, if it's the inner pad that's worn more than the outer, it's seized pins, the slides. If you see the outer pad worn more than the inner pad, 90% of the time, your caliper piston, the actual bit that does the work, is seized within this housing. So when you push it out with brake fluid, it's actually supposed to come back in. Just a slight amount, but to take pressure off so that your brake pads, they'll always touch the rotor, but they're kind of loose. So if your inner is shorter, the inner is seized against the rotor, your slides. If your outer is worn more, it's seized against the caliper, which means the piston is seized. So inner, you need slides. Outer, your caliper is probably pooched, or you can rebuild it. If you're a Yamaha guy, these calipers come totally loaded with new slides, pads, and a caliper for about $120, a whole loaded bit. So if any of those are broken, for you Yamaha guys, go buy a loaded caliper kit from Yamaha. You'll thank me later. For everyone else, Can-Am, Arctic Cat, same gist, just, you know, different hardware, maybe a different shape. But all brakes work the same, whether it's a quad, car, truck. If it's got brake rotors, it uses this style setup. So keep that in mind. If you got uneven pad wear, don't just slap new pads in, because you've got an underlying issue that's going to do it again. And then you got to do pads again. Okay, so I got both the front brakes done, new pads in, slides are all lubricated, everything's moving nice. So what you're going to want to do is pump the brakes up. See how they're real squishy? Now they're hard. You want to make sure you do that, because what'll happen is you'll forget to do that. You'll go to back your quad out of the shop or the garage or off your trailer, if you've done it on your trailer, it's been there, and you'll have zero brakes, because brakes work under pressure. And if you got this big gap you need to fill down here after you've compressed everything, all you're going to do is just move the pads in, but with no force on the rotor. So I'd hate to see one of you guys do brakes and end up through a garage door, through a wall, into your significant other's machine in front of you, the fancy Corvette in the bay next to you. You get where I'm going. So make sure you pump those things up first before you move on. I kind of like to do the front first, pump them all up, say, yep, done, then move to the back, because you'll forget. So we're moving on to the back. We got the same problem, tall people problems. Pads are worn, rotors are straight, which I don't know if we made a video last time, but last time we did pads, me and Kyle straightened my rotors with an eyeball and a tape measure. I don't know how they got bent, but I'm sure if you look back in previous videos of things, you'll realize why they're bent. But we have one other issue with the back brakes specifically. And this might go for all makes and models, but I know Yamaha for sure are really bad for this. I'll show you. So what happens is you've got a brake lever on the handlebars. We also have this foot lever right here. So this foot lever has a spring. Oh, of course it's back there, right here, on a mechanism. So you push the pedal, it comes back. Well, I don't know about you, but that's not good. So what that'll cause, I'll pull this back. That pin right there seizes, and that's the pivot for this pedal. So when you push that, and sometimes you don't even push it intentionally, but where it is, you step on it quick, and it sticks like that. The back brakes are on. I bet I can't turn this. Just that little bit of it being seized. Oh my, nope. But if I lift this, just this little hair, whoop, that's all we need. No problem. Spins like gold. So keep an eye out when you do brakes. If you realize, why are my back brakes worn more than the rest of them? Which, I mean, for you Polaris guys with one brake lever, bleh, I don't know how any of that works. Yeah, nope. But yeah, have a look at your pedal. Make sure that your pedal is loose and free like your brake lever, and that you can always spin the hubs when it's up in the air. If you can't spin them, either something seized, a lever, a foot peg, a caliper, a slide, something in your brake system needs to be looked at. Now if you have the opposite, where your brake lever on the top is going right to the handlebars and you're not stopping, then you've got to go into bleeding your brakes. Now I don't need to do that. I've got nice tight, but what you'll do is you'll fill this with brake fluid, and on the top of every one of your calipers, right here, there's a bleed screw. You pop this little rubber off, and there's a nipple right there. And what you'll do is you'll pump the brakes up, hold the lever, crack that nut, and you'll get a bunch of air and foam and fluid come out. So you're gonna make a mess. Best thing you can do is find a little piece of rubber hose or vacuum line that'll go on this and into a bucket that would be there. We don't need to do that. The next time we do, we'll show you guys how to do it. It's super easy. Definitely better if you have two people, but it can be done. It's not bad to do with one person when you're mean, you got big gorilla arms. But yeah, get two people, you'll pump the brakes, and essentially what you're doing is forcing all the air out. Because these are what they call the sealed system. You want nothing but fluid. Air is compressible, fluid is not. So if your brakes are spongy, there's probably an 80% chance that you have air in them. So when you pull that brake lever, you're compressing the air, not the fluid, and your brakes will kind of work. Maybe they won't if there's enough air, but you definitely want good brakes, because we've all ran into those moments where someone's not looking and they make a hard corner in front of you and you have a eureka moment. So we'll get the back apart. We'll do those. You guys don't need to see that. It's exactly the same as that, except for you have to use hand tools. Blech. You can use electric tools because this moves, right? You can get in there. That doesn't. So break out the old ratchets. We'll get her done, and then we'll go into how to fix this, because that'll be our next problem. And then we'll move on to many of the other projects of the day. Okay, back brakes are all done. Pumped up. Got a nice tight brake lever. This side was incredibly bad. But as you can see, rotor spin free. No one's touching the brakes, except for that one. But that's our next problem we're here to solve. So I swung this panel here out of the way. This is the pin. Oh, focus. There we go. That's the pin. So we're going to pull this whole mechanism off. Clean that pin off, and then we're going to put Tin Man paste on there. And I know you guys are probably going to blow up in the comments about, oh, don't use anti-seize, don't use anti-seize. Well, that's exactly what I want that not to do, is seize. And we go through our machines enough in a year that if it seizes again, I put more. And it's underwater 70% of its life, so yeah, I'm gonna put anti-seize. But what we're gonna do here is, I got a flat blade screwdriver. Hopefully I can do this and not have it fly away. There is an E-clip right there. Ready? Ooh. I do have my safety glasses on. Oh, I got her. That little guy. So you'll pop that off. There'll be a washer. Don't lose this washer. So this washer is not flat. It's what they call a wave washer. This one's dish shaped. So this is actually putting a little bit of pressure and preload on that little clip right here, so that it doesn't mysteriously into the abyss. So now that you've gotten this far, you can see it's very crusty and on there. So I'm going to set the camera down because I need a couple more hands, but I'm going to pull these lock nuts off here, get this cable out, and then pull this spring-a-thing eyeball homing device off. And then this will just wiggle it off, and then we'll clean the inside up with some emery cloth and a little wire brush. Clean this pin up, anti-seize, and then when we put this back together, we want this to just flop around. So this pedal should be pulled up, no problem, by this little spring. You shouldn't have to do this manually. As you can see, you push it down, stays down. Push it up, stays up. Not a deal. Okay, let's go. Got it. Whew. So as you can see, maybe, look how much corrosion's on that pin. So I had to get a big bar in there for such a tiny little thing. But what we're gonna do is get a little emery cloth. We'll clean up the inside of that, clean up that pin, and he sees it so that this just, oh, come on. Okay, we'll be back when that thing shuts up. Okay, so we got that pin all cleaned up. The compressor finally shut off. And the inside, as you can see now, that's what we want. She's loosey-goosey. And that's without any lube or anything. So we're going to slide that off with that pin in there again. We're going to put some anti-seize, some oil, and then we'll readjust the brakes. And then when you reset this, there's two lock nuts here. 1, 2. You want this cable to just be a little bit loose on this pin, so that you know 100% sure that this is not applying that whatsoever. So if you've got that slack in the cable, you know that this cable's loose and it's not applying the brakes. And then that'll solve this issue, and we can move on to the next one. Yeah, suspect has needed some TLC for a while. And it's been such a busy year. We're into July now, and this has not been used since our last ride last year with everyone. So she's been in hibernation way too long. So we got the anti-seize on there, we got that C-clip back on there, or E-clip I should say, E-clip, and the washer. Now always remember people, anti-seize is like the virus you never wanted. One little speck of that, like here I'll show you, this is the mistake. See that little tiny blob on the rag there? See that? Ooh. Right there, that'll cover this whole entire shop. It'll just silver. It's bad. Get it on your fingers. You look like Tin Man. Don't ask me how it spreads so well. Don't know. Be careful with it because it'll end up on your handlebars, on your seats, on your plastics. Just use it, wipe it off, and then that rag either fold it up or just to the garbage. Because man, and it's terrible to clean up because it's designed to not wash away and it's not good. So be careful. So we got that fixed. We'll get this and everything all reset up. You guys don't really need to see that. It's just a matter of put that spring back on. I'll probably broing it. Oh no, I got anti-seize on my camera button. See, look. See on my fingers? Oh, not good. But we'll finish this. And then our next issue, don't know what it is yet, but this hose, I have this piece of hose here for you Yamaha guys. The bolt that goes right here for this skid shield rubs on that coolant hose. Put a big chunk of, there's probably a wear mark on here somewhere. Of course not. Yeah, common problem. They like to poke a hole in that hose. That's not good. So, but I see some wetness here, and I don't have any holes in the hose. But in my trailer over the last couple days, there's just this tiny little coolant trail, and I go, oh, that's weird. And then I look up here, and in my vent hose, which is pretty normal for this to bleed down to about here, but it's bled down. So we're gonna have a look and figure out where that's going, top that back up, and then we'll move on to finding some steel for the bracket we're gonna make. So we built this bracket last year. You can go back in the videos there and look. This is, we got Kemimoto sent us some massive whips. Like they're huge. And we built them so they go down here to take up some space. But you can see we put rubbers here. And I had a bungee cord that went across. And it was just, yeah, not good. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a bracket. There's a bolt here. And a bolt here. Or maybe even use this plate. Hold that thought. We'll see what happens. But what we're going to do is build a bracket somewhere in here that comes out a bit, and it has two holes that the whips are going to go through that line up with those so that these aren't whipping everywhere over here. So basically they'll be held firm here, and then they'll be 2 feet above that. And then that's what does it. So that when we're bombing across FRCC or we're playing around or we're at an event, they're not just weeble whapping everywhere, because I like my powder coat nice, not all scratched up and gross. But yet, I mean, they're ridiculous, but they'll be fun at an event. So we'll get to that, but I'll finish putting this together. I'll get the anti-seize off of the camera here, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got the spring back on. I got this. Now see how that's loose? That way you know that this pedal, which is now, see how it comes back? That little play in the pedal there knows that you're not applying this brake lever, because this cable right here is from that brake pedal. So you can see that cable's nice and loose. So we now know that none of the brakes should be dragging. We shouldn't have any issues. So we'll get this panel all put back, and then we'll start having a look at that coolant issue over there. Okay, so got this panel off. I got looking at this coolant leak and found this clamp, factory clamp, focus, is it's stripped out. So it didn't have any tension. So went ahead, put a big dog clamp on there, sealed her up. I noticed, I figured it out with this clamp on, and and as tight as it would go, I could turn the hose on the fitting. And I'm like, that's not good. Got a new clamp on there, she's tight. So I think we've solved the problem. We'll find out. So we got that, we'll put that panel back on, and then we got to start the fabrication. So we'll go outside, we'll get the whips. Get the whips going here, get them hooked on. Then we'll use a tape measure. Don't know whether we're going to measure in Canadian or American today. We'll figure that out. We'll see which one evens out. And we're going to build some sort of bracket holder device thing. And we'll go from there. Maybe we add something more to it. Flag mount, or who knows. We'll see what happens. Okay, so before we work on this bracket, I figured, I'd check my diff oil. It wasn't dirty, wasn't clean, but it's one simple plug from the bottom, and then you fill it up from the back here. And I figured I might as well do that. So we'll check and do the front too, because it's easy, preventative, and I mean, they get a little moisture in there and whatnot, so it only takes about, well, this is what came out of the back diff, and the check plug was right on point. So I mean, there's maybe 100 milliliters in there, if that. It's very little. They hold very little. There's not a lot of displacement left in there after you put the gear set in. So we'll do the back one, we'll do the front one. It's the same thing, drain plug from the bottom, fill plug there. So on the front diff, you'll drain the bottom. This plug here, you'll pull out, you'll fill it with gear oil until it runs out of this hole, then you're full. On the back diff, you're a little bit different. You've got a fill plug directly from the back, and then you have a little 10 millimeter on the side of the diff here, right in front of your CV axle. You'll pull that out, and then you'll fill it from the back till it runs out the side. And then you know you're full. So these don't have dipsticks, it's more or less a simple fill it till it overflows and you know you're full. So it's hard to overfill, it's hard to underfill. Okay, so we got the fill check plug out of this one. We got the little plug out of the bottom, just draining it out into here. So what I like to do is, Yamaha, when you buy the oil for these, comes in a 1.5 liter bottle. So what I'll do is I'll take the check plug out, I'll leave the fill plug out as well, and I'll put, you know, 100 or 200 milliliters. I'll just fire the clean oil in the top and let it come out the bottom. That way, if there's any, you know, there's always going to be a buildup of little metal bits, gears on gears they're going to wear. It helps to flush any of that dirty junk out of there. So I'll do the same here. I'll let it finish dripping out, and then I'll just, with the drain plug in, come on, I'll just add oil and just let it run out the bottom there for a little bit. And then when it starts to come out clean, I'll seal it up again, and I'll fill it to the level it's supposed to be at. Okay, so I finished flushing out the front diff here a little bit. I got it in. Sorry I didn't video it. Hard to add oil, wipe it up, not make a mess, hold a camera in one hand. So what I do, when I fill these up after I put the drain plug back in, I'll fill them up till they run out, and then I let them sit for 3 or 4 minutes. The oil that goes into these is thick, 80W90. So 9 or 10 times as thick as engine oil. It's kind of like molasses. So it needs time to bleed into all those gears and all those nooks and crannies. It doesn't just immediately fill up. And you'll notice when you fill it to the point it runs out, like you're supposed to, if you give it a few minutes and you check it, it'll actually be low. And you've got to top it up again, just because it takes so long for that oil to migrate through the gear set, through your ring and pinion, and settle into those bearings. So don't get ahead of yourself when you're doing gear oils. Take your time, fill it, check it, fill it, check it. Worst case scenario, you burn a little bit of extra oil, but I mean, when you buy the oil from Yamaha for these, they give you way more than you need. So take your time. Diffs are very expensive. Oil is relatively cheap in comparison. So fill, check, fill, check, fill, check. Even if you got to do it 2 or 3 times, if you got it on the hoist and you're doing other things, just leave the fill plug out. If you're working on stuff for an hour, just periodically check it. Keep topping it up. It's in the long run, it'll save you. So the diffs weren't on my list of things to do today, but I thought, I got the wheels off, it's on the hoist. Hey, let's do it. So we'll do that. I'm gonna go grab a tape measure. Now we're gonna start the fab on that mount. So I'm going to measure up some bolt holes, some back here. I don't know if I'm going to use this yet or these, but I'm going to measure it up and see what I can find for a piece of steel. I might have to go on a shopping adventure. Okay, I got a little ahead of myself, so I've come to the conclusion that we're going to mount to where the bolts hold the box and the rack to the brackets because they're a little bit bigger of a bolt. This I think is just going to be chintzy, not good. So you can see I got the whips on here. I've measured to where they're level and hangulated that out. So I'll show you what I got going on here. It's kind of like the bracket on the bottom. It's trial and error. We made a lot of marks. So as you can see, there is a ton of blue marks there. So what I did, and this is sheer luck, is I found this old washer. Now for you heavy truck guys, you probably know where this washer is from. Comment below if you know. But it has to do with brakes. Anyway, that's what I made to use the circle. Now, when you reach in my back pocket, you large truck types too probably know what that is. That is the rubber that seals a glad hand for air brake trailers. Turns out that hole right there, right in the middle, fits those whips absolutely perfectly. And the outer groove is the exact same size as that. So we lucked out. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a bracket. That's going to get drilled. Ow, that's hot. Hot. Ooh, I got no fingerprint left there. We're going to drill that X are going to go on the factory mount bolts. That circle are going to get hole sawed out with rubber thing. And then that's going to stop the whips from banging into the back of the box, driving me mad. So I'll finish cutting this out. We'll get it mocked up, drilled up, and I'll show you what it looks like once we get it roughly on the bike. Sorry guys, I got a little carried away with the metal fab here. Kind of hard to video that at the same time. So here we go. Look at that. That looks like something you should buy from a store. That's the mount for the whips. So that's going to go under the rack, like so. As you can see, 2 holes. Line up with those. No more flapping around. So I'll get it mounted up. We'll get the whips on there and I'll show you what it looks like. We did decide to go and use these mount holes here through the box, right into the rack, because they seem definitely more robust than that stupid little tang. Okay, you guys ready? Here you go. She's robust now. See, she's not banging into the box. Looks real clean and everything too. I might give it a little bit of a tweak. We'll see. There she is. We'll give her some random color paint. You guys probably can't imagine. And go from there. Okay, we're just starting to wrap everything up. I got a coat of paint on. You can only imagine what color that is. Yep, red. So it's going to blend in with everything. So when you do projects like this, if you think about it, put the coat of paint on and then clean up all of your tools in the shop so that you're not cleaned up and then waiting for paint to dry. And then you can put a second coat on nonetheless. So got that ready. Tires are all aired up, checked. Engine oil, everything. Diffs I rechecked. They're nice and full. So we'll clean up all our tools, get the wheels back on. You guys may or may not see this bracket done in this video. Depends on how the paint wants to cooperate. It's absolutely humid as possibly could be today. So if you know anything about paint and humidity, they don't get along. Yeah, other than that, we'll get the wheels back on. We'll get her off the hoist, clean up all our tools and stuff, and we'll show you what it looks like done. Okay, and like that, wheels are back on. We got her off the hoist. Guys, number one thing, if you got the wheels off of your machine, torque them. Torque them, torque them, torque them. Look on the manual, look online, forums, guys will help you out. 75 foot-pounds is the torque for Yamaha machines. Side-by-sides, quads, you name it. So a 3/8 ratchet with just a huh by hand. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of you guys just, you don't want to go too tight, you don't want to break the stud, but this thing is the same size studs as a Honda. Civic, and they're torqued to 80 plus. And these are 75. I haven't lost a wheel, I haven't broke a stud, I haven't stripped a stud, I haven't stretched a stud. Check your manuals, check your specs. A wheel flying off is not a good time. If you're out on the trail, it's not fun for you, it's not fun for everyone else, and hopefully if it does happen, no one gets hurt, but most of the time, bad things happen when wheels fly off, especially front ones. You're gonna go off the direction you're not supposed to. But anyway, all we got left is wait for paint to dry and whatnot. I'll clean up tools, get her off the hoist, get her loaded back up into the trailer, and we'll go from there. I think that's a wrap for our shop day on Suspect. Brakes are done, diffs are flushed. Oil's not quite ready for a change yet. May or may not do it before FRCC, we'll see. Got the bracket done for the whips. I wish I could show you guys that done, but paint, drying, can't make that go faster. Yeah, not a very exciting video by any means, but it's got to happen. It's what you got to do to keep these things going. So just an update maintenance wise, keep up with it. Trust me, if you fall behind and things start to break, your rides become a lot less fun when you got breakdowns. So yeah, like I said, it's not a very interesting video, but hey, it's things that have got to be done. And hopefully it helps some of you guys out that are on the Yamaha platform. You know, it does cross Arctic Cat, Can-Am, does go across the board, but Yamaha, of course. You've seen the videos of Kyle with his old Outlander Mischief and Menace. We haven't really done a lot of maintenance to Menace, but I think that's coming. I think. Needs a little TLC. But yeah, that's what I do to mine before big rides after the season. Like you can see, it's absolutely spotless. Haven't used it yet this year, so that's the time to do your maintenance, because when it's full of mud, it's not fun. So till next time, I'm out.